The stair is steep. 260 steps rise toward the sky. Each step is higher than a man's knee. Climbing is slow work. The stone is cold under bare feet. The night air is thin at this height. The priest breathes in short bursts. His lungs burn. His legs tremble. But he does not stop climbing. The year is 1520. The place is Tenochtitlan. The city floats on a lake of salt water. 500,000 people live on the floating islands. The canals carry canoes between the houses. The markets sell jade and feathers and chocolate and blood. The blood comes from the sacrifices. The sacrifices feed the sun. The sun must eat to rise again. The Aztec Empire is dying. The Spanish arrived last year. Their leader's name is Hernán Cortés. He came with horses and steel and diseases the Aztecs had never seen. Smallpox moves through the city like fire through dry grass. The dead are too many to count. The living are too weak to bury them. The priest reaches the top of the pyramid. The platform is small, no larger than a farmer's house. The sacrificial stone sits in the center. End quote. The stone is black from centuries of blood. The grooves in the stone run toward the edges. The grooves carry blood away from the body. The blood falls down the steps of the pyramid. The blood feeds the earth. The earth feeds the sun. The victim is already waiting. A young man from the city of Texcoco, 20 years old. His name is not recorded. The names of victims are never recorded. He is not wearing his own clothes. He wears the clothes of a god. The feathers are blue and green. The Quetzal feathers shine in the torchlight. The young man has been preparing for this night for 1 year. He has been treated like a god for 12 months. He has walked through the city with flowers in his hair. The people bowed when he passed. They brought him food and drink and gifts. He was not a prisoner. He was a messenger. He was a chosen one. The priest holds the obsidian knife. The blade is black and sharp, sharper than steel. The Aztecs make their knives from volcanic glass. The edge is thin enough to cut hair. The edge is thin enough to cut skin without feeling. The young man will not feel the blade. That is the promise. That is the gift. The priest looks at the sky. The stars are bright tonight. No clouds, no rain. The gods can see clearly. Tlaloc, the rain god. Huitzilopochtli, the sun god. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. The old gods who built the world and destroyed it 4 times. This is the 5th world, the 5th sun, the 5th attempt at creation. If the sun does not eat tonight, the world will end. The jaguars will eat the people. The wind will tear the mountains. The stars will fall from the sky. The young man lies down on the stone. His back touches the black surface. The stone is cold. The stone is wet from previous offerings. His hands and feet are held by 4 priests. The 5th priest stands above him with the knife. The young man does not struggle. He has accepted his role. He has been taught that death on the pyramid is a great honor. He will go to the eastern paradise. He will live with the sun. He will become a hummingbird and follow the sun across the sky. The priest raises the knife. The torchlight catches the obsidian edge. The edge glows red for a moment. Then the knife comes down. The young man's chest opens. The ribs separate. The heart is still beating. The priest reaches into the cavity. His hand is warm. His fingers find the heart. The heart is the size of a fist. The heart is the color of a pomegranate. The priest pulls the heart upward. The heart tears free from the body. Blood sprays from the opening. The blood hits the priest's face. It hits the other priests. And. It hits the stone. The grooves carry the blood toward the edge. The blood falls down the steps. One drop, then another, then a river. The young man's body goes limp. His eyes are open. His mouth is open. He saw something in his final moment. His face is not a face of pain. His face is a face of wonder. His eyes are looking at the sky. His lips are curved in a small smile. The priest holds the heart toward the stars. The heart beats once more in his hand. Then it stops. Steam rises from the heart. The blood is warm in the cold night air. The priest turns the heart toward the east, toward the rising sun, toward Huitzilopochtli, who will drink the blood and rise again in the morning. The other priests lower the body from the stone. The body will be taken down the steps. The body will be dismembered. The flesh will be eaten in a ritual meal. The bones will be kept as relics. The skull will be placed on the tzompantli. The skull rack already holds 10,000 skulls. The young man's skull will join them. His teeth will grin at the sky for eternity. But something is different about this night. Something has changed in the world. The priest feels it in his bones. The stars are not in the right places. The wind is not blowing from the right direction. The gods are not answering the way they usually answer. The priest looks at the sky again. He sees something strange. A star is moving, not falling, moving. Moving across the sky in a straight line. Moving faster than any star should move. The priests whisper among themselves. They point at the moving light. They do not know what they are seeing. The moving light is a comet. The Spanish will call it Halley's Comet. It passes near the Earth every 76 years. The Aztecs have never seen it before. Their ancestors saw it. Their ancestors recorded it in codices that the Spanish will burn, but the living Aztecs have no memory of this light. They only know that something is wrong. The sky is breaking. The gods are leaving. The priest lowers his hands. The heart stops steaming. The blood stops flowing. The young man's body is carried down the steps. The priests follow the body. The platform is empty now. except for the stone and the torch and the priest. He stands alone at the top of the pyramid. He looks at the moving star. He looks at the city below. The city is quiet. The smallpox has silenced the songs and the drums. The canals are empty of canoes. The markets are empty of people. The temples are empty of worshippers. The priest whispers something to the moving star. He asks the star why it has come. He asks the star if it brings a message from the gods. He asks the star if the world is ending. The star does not answer. The star moves across the sky. The star disappears behind the mountains. The priest walks to the edge of the platform. He looks down at the steps. 260 steps. Each step wet with blood. His blood and the blood of 10,000 others. He has been a priest for 30 years. He has cut the hearts from 1,000 bodies. He has eaten the flesh of 100 men. He has never questioned the sacrifice. The sun needs blood. The earth needs blood. The gods need blood. But tonight he questions. The moving star has opened a door in his mind, a small door, a door he cannot close. He wonders if the Spanish are right. He wonders if the gods are not gods at all. He wonders if the sacrifices have been for nothing. He pushes the thought away. The thought is dangerous. The thought is a poison. He is a priest. His duty is to the gods. His duty is to the sun. His duty is to the pyramid. He walks down the steps. The blood makes the stone slippery. He holds the obsidian knife in his hand. The blade is still wet. He reaches the bottom of the pyramid. The other priests are waiting for him. They ask him what he saw in the sky. He tells them he saw nothing. He tells them the stars are where they have always been. The other priests nod. They believe him. They want to believe him. The truth is too terrible. The truth is that the sky is changing. The truth is that the gods are silent. The truth is that the fifth world is ending. The priest walks away from the pyramid. He does not look back. He does not want to see the blood on the steps. He does not want to see the moving star. He does not want to see anything except the darkness. The pyramid of the sun is not the tallest pyramid in the world. The pyramids of Egypt are taller, but the pyramid of the sun is wider, much wider. The base covers an area larger than a football field. The construction took 10,000 workers 20 years to complete. The stones were cut from volcanic rock. The stones were carried from quarries 50 miles away. The workers rolled the stones on logs. The logs came from forests 100 miles away. Everything about the pyramid required movement. Everything about the pyramid required labor. Everything about the pyramid required suffering. The pyramid was built in the city of Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan was built before the Aztecs existed. The Aztecs found the pyramid when they arrived in the Valley of Mexico. They did not know who built it. They did not know why it was built. They gave it a name, Pyramid of the Sunday. They used it for their own sacrifices. They added their own blood to the blood of the unknown builders. The Aztecs believed the pyramid was the place where the fifth sun was created. The story is old and strange. The gods gathered in the darkness before the fifth world. They built a fire. They chose a god to throw himself into the fire. The god who jumped would become the new sun. The richest god was Tecuchistecatl. He was proud and beautiful. He stepped toward the fire, but the heat was too strong. He stepped back. He could not jump. The smallest god was Nanahuatzin. He was poor and covered in sores. He closed his eyes and jumped into the flames. The fire burned his body. He rose into the sky as the sun. The proud god was ashamed. He jumped after Nanahuatzin. A second sun rose into the sky. Two suns were too bright for the world. The gods threw a rabbit at the second sun. The rabbit dimmed the light. The second sun became the moon. You can still see the rabbit in the moon's face if you look carefully. The Aztecs told this story to explain why the moon is dim and the sun is bright. They told this story to explain why sacrifice is necessary. Nanahuatzin gave everything. He gave his body and his life. The sun needs that kind of giving every day. Without sacrifice, the sun will stop moving. Without sacrifice, the world will end. The priests believed this story with their whole hearts. They were trained from childhood to believe. The training began at age 5. Boys from noble families were sent to the Kalmakak. The Kalmakak was a school for priests. The boys slept on stone floors. They ate 1 meal a day. They cut their ears and tongues with obsidian blades. They offered their own blood to the gods before they offered the blood of others. The training lasted 15 years. The boys learned the calendar. The Aztec calendar had 18 months of 20 days, 5 extra days at the end of the year. Those 5 days were unlucky. No one worked on those days. No one left their houses. The priests performed special ceremonies to keep the world from ending during the empty days. The boys learned the names of the gods. 200 gods in the Aztec pantheon. Gods of rain and sun and wind and corn and war and death and flowers and dancing and drunkenness. Every activity had a god. Every moment of life required prayer. The gods were hungry. The gods were thirsty. The gods were jealous. The gods would destroy the world if they were not fed. The boys learned the techniques of sacrifice. 4 ways to kill a human being for the gods. Heart extraction for the sun god. Decapitation for the corn god. Arrow sacrifice for the star demons. Gladiator sacrifice for the war god. Each method had its own rituals. Each method had its own songs. Each method had its own meaning. Heart extraction was the most common. The victim was stretched across the stone. 4 priests held the arms and legs. The 5th priest cut between the ribs. The heart was pulled upward. The body was pushed down the steps. The whole process took less than a minute. A trained priest could sacrifice 20 victims in an hour. On important festival days, the priests sacrificed thousands. The blood ran down the pyramid steps like water after a storm. The blood pooled in the courtyards. The blood attracted flies. The flies laid eggs. The eggs became maggots. The maggots ate the blood. The priests did not notice. They were too busy cutting. The Spanish would write about the sacrifices with horror. They would describe the skull racks and the blood and the hearts. They would use these descriptions to justify the destruction of the Aztec Empire. They would say the Aztecs were monsters who needed to be saved from themselves. They would burn the codices and break the temples and baptize the children. They would call this salvation. But the Spanish did not understand the Aztec mind. The Aztecs did not see sacrifice as murder. They saw sacrifice as feeding. The sun was a hungry child. The earth was a thirsty mother. The gods were parents who needed to eat. The victims were not victims. The victims were messengers. The victims were honored. The victims were given the greatest gift a human could receive. Death on the pyramid meant eternal life in the Eastern paradise. The young man from Texcoco believed this. He had been chosen a year ago. A priest visited his village. The priest looked at the young men. He examined their bodies. He checked their teeth and their skin and their eyes. He chose the healthiest one. The young man was not afraid. He was proud. His family was proud. His village was proud. They held a feast in his honor. They gave him new clothes and new sandals and new feathers for his hair. For 1 year, the young man lived like a god. He walked through the city wearing the quetzal feathers. People bowed when he passed. They offered him cacao and tortillas and tamales. He stayed in the temple with the priests. They taught him the songs he would sing on the pyramid. They taught him the prayers he would say to the sun. They taught him how to lie on the stone without fear. On his last day, he walked through the city one final time. He threw flowers to the crowd. The women wept. The men shouted his name. Children ran beside him. He climbed the pyramid steps. Slowly. He did not look back. He did not want to see the faces of the people who loved him. He lay down on the stone. The priests held his hands and feet. He looked at the sky. The sky was blue. The clouds were white. The sun was bright. He closed his eyes. He opened them again when the knife entered his chest. The pain was not what he expected. The pain was sharp and cold. The pain was a door opening. Behind the door was light, not the light of the sun. A different light, a softer light, a light that held him like a mother holds a child. He saw something in that light, a face, a woman's face. Her skin was dark, her hair was black, her eyes were brown and kind. She smiled at him. She reached out her hand. He took her hand. End quote. She pulled him into the light. The young man's body died on the stone, but the young man himself was gone. He was walking with the woman in the light. He did not know who she was. Maybe his grandmother, maybe a goddess, maybe the earth itself. It did not matter. He was not afraid anymore. He had never been less afraid in his life. The priest saw the smile on the young man's face. The priest had seen many faces in his career, faces of pain, faces of fear, faces of resignation, but he had never seen a face like this. A face of wonder, a face of joy, a face of arrival. The priest wondered if the young man had seen something real. He wondered if the sacrifice was truly a door to another world. He had always believed it was. But belief is not the same as knowing. The young man knew. The young man had seen. The young man had gone where the priest could not follow. The priest held the heart toward the sky. The heart was warm in his hand. The heart stopped beating. The steam rose from the blood. The priest watched the steam disappear into the air. The steam went somewhere. The steam went to the gods. The steam went to the young man's new home. The priest hoped the young man was happy there. He hoped the young man was dancing with the sun. He hoped the young man was a hummingbird flying through the flowers of paradise. The priest would never know. No priest ever knows. They only believe. The priest's name was Akamapichtli. He was born in the year of one rabbit. That is what the Aztecs called the year. One rabbit. Every year had a name. 4, rabbit. 5, flower. 6, house. The calendar was a wheel that never stopped turning. Akamapichtli was born on the day of one death. His mother named him after a famous ruler from the past. A ruler who had built temples and conquered cities and died in his bed. Akamapichtli hoped for the same fate. He would not get it. His father was a priest. His grandfather was a priest. His great-grandfather was a priest. The family had been serving the gods for 6 generations. Akamapichtli had no choice about his profession. He was placed in the Kalmakak at age 5. He did not remember a time before the temple. The temple was his home. The priests were his fathers. The gods were his masters. But, end. He learned to cut his tongue with obsidian. The blood tasted like iron and salt. He offered the blood to the sun. He offered the blood to the earth. He offered the blood to the old gods who lived under the pyramid. The old gods were not kind. The old gods demanded more blood than the sun. The old gods lived in the darkness and waited for the world to end. Akamapichtli grew tall and strong. His hands were large. His fingers were long. He could hold a human heart without dropping it. He could pull the heart from the chest in one smooth motion. The other priests admired his technique. They said he had a gift from the gods. They said His hands were blessed. He performed his first sacrifice when he was 20 years old. The victim was a prisoner from the city of Tlaxcala. Tlaxcala was an enemy of the Aztecs. The two nations had been fighting for generations. The prisoner was a young man with a broken nose. He had been captured in battle. He had been kept in a cage for 6 months. He was thin and weak and covered in his own waste. Akamapichli felt nothing when he cut the young man's chest. The knife moved through skin and muscle as if the body were made of water. The heart came out easily, too easily. The heart was small. The young man had not eaten enough. His heart was weak. It beat twice in Akamapishli's hand and then stopped. The other priests praised him. They said his first sacrifice was perfect. They said the gods would remember his name. Akamapichli smiled at their praise, but inside he felt empty. The sacrifice had not given him the feeling he expected. He had expected power. He had expected connection with the gods. He had expected something to change in his soul. Nothing changed. He was the same man before and after. The blood on his hands was just blood. The heart in his hand was just meat. The gods did not speak to him. The gods did not thank him. The gods did not even seem to notice. He performed more sacrifices, 100, 200, 500. He lost count after 10 years. The faces blurred together. The hearts all looked the same. The blood smelled the same. The sound of the knife cutting skin became as ordinary as the sound of rain. He began to dream about the victims at night. They came to him in his sleep. The man with the broken nose. The woman from the market who had been accused of witchcraft. The child from the village that had refused to pay tribute. They stood around his bed and stared at him with empty eye sockets. They did not speak. They did not need to speak. Their silence was louder than any words. Akamapichli stopped sleeping. He stayed awake in the temple. He offered more blood to the gods, his own blood. He cut his tongue and his ears and his thighs. He hoped the pain would bring the gods closer. He hoped the pain would silence the dreams. The pain worked for a while. The dreams always returned. The Spanish arrived in the year of one reed. Akamapichli was 50 years old. He had been a priest for 30 years. His hair was gray. His hands were steady. His eyes were tired. He watched the Spanish walk into Tenochtitlan on horses. He had never seen a horse before. He thought the horse and the rider were one creature, a man with the body of a deer, a god from the east. End quote. The Emperor Moctezuma welcomed the Spanish. He gave them gifts of gold and feathers and chocolate. He believed Cortez was the god Quetzalcoatl, returning from across the sea. The prophecy said Quetzalcoatl would come in the year of one reed, and here he was, pale skin, dark beard, metal armor. The prophecy was being fulfilled. Akamapichli did not believe the prophecy. He had read the codices. He knew the story of Quetzalcoatl. The feathered serpent was a god of wind and wisdom. He was not a man with a beard and a sword. Cortés was something else, something new, something dangerous. He told the emperor his concerns. He told Moctezuma that the Spanish were not gods. He told Moctezuma that the Spanish wanted gold and power and blood. He told Moctezuma to send the Spanish away before it was too late. The emperor did not listen. The emperor gave the Spanish more gifts. The emperor let the Spanish explore the city. The emperor let the Spanish enter the temples. The emperor let the Spanish touch the sacred objects. Akamapichtli watched the Spanish climb the pyramid of the Sunday. They laughed at the sacrificial stone. They called the sacrifices barbaric. They said the Aztec gods were demons. They said the Aztec people needed to be saved from their own religion. The priest wanted to kill them. He wanted to take his obsidian knife and open their chests and feed their hearts to the sun, but he could not. The emperor had ordered the priests not to harm the Spanish. The emperor believed the Spanish were gods. The emperor believed killing gods would bring destruction to the world. Akamapichtli obeyed the order. He was a priest. His duty was to obey the emperor. His duty was to serve the gods. His duty was to keep the world turning. But his heart was not in the duty anymore. His heart was tired. His heart was empty. His heart was as cold as the sacrificial stone. The smallpox arrived in the autumn. The Spanish brought the disease. They did not mean to bring it. They did not know. They carried it in their blood and their breath. The Aztecs had never seen smallpox before. Their bodies had no defense. The disease spread through the city like water through a broken dam. The first victims died within a week. Their skin turned red. Then the red became blisters. The blisters became black. The black became death. The bodies were thrown into the canals. The canals carried the bodies to the lake. The lake turned red with blood and black with disease. The fish ate the bodies. The people ate the fish. The disease spread faster. Akamapichtli watched his people die. His neighbors died. His cousins died. His students died. The young priests died in their beds. The old priests died on their knees, praying to the gods. The gods did not answer. The gods did not stop the disease. The gods did not care. He began to doubt. The doubt was small at first, like a seed in dry earth. He wondered why the gods allowed the Spanish to live. The Spanish were invaders. The Spanish were desecrating the temples. The Spanish were stealing the gold. The Spanish should have been struck down by lightning, or eaten by jaguars, or drowned in the lake. But the Spanish were healthy. The Spanish were strong. The Spanish were conquering without fighting. The doubt grew. The seed became a plant. The plant became a tree. The tree filled his mind with dark branches. He wondered if the gods were real at all. He wondered if the sacrifices had been for nothing. He wondered if he had spent his life cutting hearts from living bodies for no reason. He climbed the pyramid on the night of the moving star. The sacrifice of the young man from Texcoco was supposed to stop the disease. The priests had chosen the best victim, the healthiest young man in the empire. They dressed him in the finest feathers. They taught him the best songs. They gave him the best cacao. They hoped his blood would satisfy the gods. They hoped the gods would remove the smallpox from the city. The sacrifice did not work. The smallpox continued to spread. The young man's body was eaten. His bones were placed on the skull rack. His skull grinned at the sky. But the disease did not care. The disease was not a god. The disease was a thing without a heart. You could not feed it blood. You could not pray to it. You could only die from it. Akama Pitchley stood at the top of the pyramid after the sacrifice. The other priests had gone down. He was alone with the stone and the torch and the moving star. He looked at the star. The star moved across the sky like a message from somewhere else, a message he could not read. He thought about his life. 60 years of service, 60 years of blood, 60 years of believing things he could not prove. And he had never questioned the gods before. He had accepted the teachings of his fathers and his grandfathers and his great-grandfathers. The gods were real. The sacrifices were necessary. The sun would die without blood. But the sun had risen every morning without his help. The sun had risen before the Aztecs existed. The sun would rise after the Aztecs were gone. The sun did not need his blood. The sun did not need anyone's blood. The sun was a ball of fire in the sky. It did not eat. It did not drink. It did not care about the small creatures crawling on the earth below. The realization was cold, colder than the stone under his feet, colder than the obsidian knife in his hand. He had wasted his life. 30 years of cutting hearts. 30 years of eating human flesh. 30 years of praying to gods who were not there. He wanted to scream. He wanted to throw himself down the steps. He wanted to cut his own heart from his chest and see if anything happened. If the gods were real, they would save him. If the gods were not real, he would die and the world would continue without him. He did not scream. He did not jump. He did not cut. He walked down the steps slowly. Each step was a confession. Each step was an admission of his own foolishness. 260 steps. 260 small deaths. He reached the bottom of the pyramid. The other priests were waiting. Their faces were hopeful. They asked him, if the gods had spoken to him on the pyramid. They asked him if the sacrifice had been accepted. They asked him if the smallpox would end. He told them the gods were pleased. He told them the sacrifice was perfect. He told them the smallpox would end soon. He lied to his brothers because the truth was too terrible. The truth was that no one was listening. The truth was that no one had ever been listening. The truth was that the sky was empty and the gods were made of stone, and the blood had washed away like rain. He walked away from the pyramid. He did not look back. He walked to his room in the temple. He sat on the stone floor. He put his head in his hands. He did not move for the rest of the night. In the morning, he washed his face. He put on his priest's robes. He sharpened his obsidian knife. He walked to the pyramid for another sacrifice. There was nothing else to do. He did not know how to be anything except a priest. The doubt would live inside him like a worm in an apple, but he would continue. He had no choice. The pyramid needed him. The people needed him. The lie needed him. He climbed the steps, 260 steps. The sun was rising over the mountains. The sun was red and beautiful. The sun did not need his blood, but he gave it anyway. The last sacrifice on the pyramid of the sun happened on a morning without rain. The sky was clear. The wind was still. The lake was quiet. The city was silent. Most of the people were dead or dying. The smallpox had taken 9 of every 10 Aztecs. The Spanish had taken the rest. Acamapichli climbed the pyramid one final time. He was 63 years old. His hair was white. His hands shook. His eyes were clouded with cataracts. He could barely see the steps in front of him. He climbed by touch. His fingers found the edges of the stones. His feet found the flat surfaces. He climbed slowly. There was no hurry. No one was watching. The other priests were dead. The young man from Texcoco was the last victim. There was no one left to sacrifice. He reached the top of the pyramid. The sacrificial stone was still there. The black surface was dry. No blood had touched it in months. The grooves were empty. The steps were clean. The rain had washed away the evidence of centuries. Acamapichli sat on the edge of the platform. His legs hung over the side. He looked at the city below. Tenochtitlan was a ghost town. The houses were empty. The canals were still. The markets were abandoned. The skull rack stood in the courtyard. 10,000 skulls grinned at the empty sky. Some of the skulls were his friends. Some were his family. Some were the young man from Texcoco who had smiled as his heart was torn from his chest. He thought about the moving star. He had seen it twice more before his eyes went bad. The star came every 76 years. The Spanish called it Halley's Comet. The Aztecs had no name for it. They only knew it was a sign of change, a sign that the world was ending. The world was ending, not with fire or flood or jaguars. The world was ending with sickness and steel and silence. The Spanish had won. The Aztec Empire was gone. The temples would be broken. The codices would be burned. The children would be baptized with Spanish names. The gods would be forgotten. Acamapichtli took off his priest's robes. The fabric was old and thin. The bloodstains had faded to brown. He folded the robes carefully. He placed them on the sacrificial stone. He would not need them anymore. There were no more sacrifices to perform. There were no more gods to serve. He took out his obsidian knife. The blade was still sharp. The edge was still thin. He had used this knife for 40 years. He had cut 1,000 hearts with this blade. He had held the hearts toward the sky. He had watched the steam rise from the warm blood. He had believed every drop was necessary. He held the knife in his hands. The blade caught the morning light. The light was golden. The light was warm. The light was the same light that had shone on the first sacrifice, and the 1,000th sacrifice, and every sacrifice in between. He thought about the young man from Texcoco, the smile on the young man's face, the wonder in his eyes, the joy of his departure. Acamapichtli had wondered for years if the young man had seen something real. He had wondered if the sacrifice truly opened a door to another world. Now, at the end of his life, he decided to believe. Not because he had proof, not because the gods had spoken to him, not because the codices said it was true. He decided to believe because belief was better than despair. The young man had died with joy. Acamapichtli wanted to die with joy as well. He looked at the sky. The sun was rising over the mountains. The sun was red and gold and beautiful. The same sun that had risen on the first day of the first world. The same sun that would rise on the last day of the last world. The sun did not need his blood. The sun did not need anyone's blood. But the sun was there. The sun was constant. The sun was a witness to everything that had ever happened on the earth below. Acamapichtli closed his eyes. He whispered something to the sun. He thanked the sun for rising every morning. He thanked the sun for the warmth on his face. He thanked the sun for the light that had guided his hands during 40 years of sacrifice. He opened his eyes. He looked at the city below, the empty city, the dead city, the city that had been the center of the world. He stood up on the platform. His legs were weak. His hands were shaking, but he stood. He whispered 2 words to the empty city. Good night. Then he stepped off the edge of the pyramid. 260 steps below, his body landed in the courtyard. The bones broke. The blood spread. The skull cracked. The face that had seen so many faces finally stopped seeing. The priests found him in the morning. There were no priests left to find him. His body lay in the courtyard for 3 days. No one came to bury him. No one came to mourn him. The smallpox had taken everyone he knew. The Spanish had taken everyone else. His bones were gathered by a Spanish soldier. The soldier did not know whose bones they were. He threw them in the lake with the other bodies. The fish ate the flesh. The water dissolved the bones. Acamapichtli became part of the lake. The lake became part of the earth. The earth became part of the sky. The Pyramid of the Sun still stands. Tourists climb the steps every day. 260 steps. They take photographs at the top. They look at the view of the valley. They do not know about Acamapichtli. They do not know about the young man from Texcoco. They do not know about the 10,000 skulls on the rack. They only see stones and sky and the distant mountains. But sometimes, on quiet nights, the wind carries a sound across the pyramid. A whisper, a prayer, a goodbye. The sound is not real. The sound is the wind moving through the cracks in the stones. The sound is the memory of blood that has long since washed away. The sound is nothing. But the people who hear it stop walking. They look up at the pyramid. They look up at the sky. They look for the moving star that comes every 76 years. The star will come again. The star always comes again. And when it comes, the pyramid will be waiting. The stones will be waiting. The bones in the lake will be waiting. And somewhere in the eastern paradise, a young man in quetzal feathers will turn into a hummingbird. He will fly across the sky. He will follow the sun. He will never stop flying. He will never stop smiling. Good night.